I've just realized I haven't talked you through it. I was already doing that in the first take of this video. What's just happened in Shylock's life at this point is that his daughter Jessica has ran away. She has eloped, essentially. She was the crowning jewel in his life. He's also treated very poorly by everyone else in the play. He comes across as almost the villain of the play, but we don't really know why these people just hate on him so much. He's portrayed as a moneylender, a money grabber, a evil kind of person, and everyone kind of hates on him because he's Jewish, essentially. And that this speech kind of shows us that he is just like everyone else. There's this kind of constant conflict between Christianity and Judaism in this play. And in this scene in particular, Bassanio and Antonio's friends are kind of coming in and kind of start digging on him. And he starts, well, Salerio asks him, why I am sure if he forfeit, thou will not take his flesh. What's that good for? He's saying, just to kind of recap on the whole premise of the play, Shylock offers a loan to Salerio's friend, to Bassanio, and Antonio is the merchant of Venice. I'm totally lost with my thoughts now because I literally have just said all of this already on the other live. And he's saying, Shylock says, if you can't pay me back the 3,000 ducats, I will take a pound of your flesh. That's a lot, all right? We need our flesh as human beings, don't we? He immediately kind of asks for his life, essentially. He's asking for his meat, his bone, his flesh. And that in itself is quite a scary, horrible thing to ask for in exchange for money. So I think Shakespeare's highlighting on, you know, what is more valuable, money or flesh, like the human life or the importance of having wealth. And I really love this theme throughout the play. And so Salerio's just asked, look, I'm sure if he can't pay you back, I'm sure you're not going to ask for a pound of his flesh. What is that good for? Translation. Shylock steps in and he says, to bait fish withal. If it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, heated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why? Revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute. And it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. A man, enter a man from Antonio. Man, gentleman, blah, 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 blah. So there you go. There was me lifting it off the page for you. And just despite the fact it isn't in that written format structure of the kind of poetic verse, there is still absolutely an element of poetry to this. And throughout the play, it kind of ducks and dives in and out of that. It's a really lovely, lovely speech. And it's one of the relevant speeches of today. It's one that no matter what, we could slot out Christian and Jew and put in anything else. We could, You know, any kind of divisions that we have as a human race, we could pop in there. And I'm a firm believer that we're all equal, we're all one, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jew, whether you're anything else, whether you're black or white, whatever, trans, gay, straight, none of it matters. We're all human at the end of the day, right? And although Shylock is going about it in a way where he demands, you know, his arm if he doesn't pay the money back, it's a really solid argument that he's coming across with here. And the key thing I want to point out immediately is the punctuation. So if you work with me as a coaching student, questions are one of the most powerful tools in our rhetoric handbook that we can use. Even though we know and can see flat out, this is a chunk of text without interruption that Shylock has. He asks, well, how many? I haven't counted. Let's quickly do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if I've not miscounted, questions in the space of 20 odd lines. 18 lines, I think it is. That's a lot of questions. So although it's a big speech, and although we think Shakespeare is long and we need to race through it, it's really important that we ask these questions to Salerio, to all of the people, to the audience, and let those questions land so that they can digest what he is saying. So that's like my key thing for this speech. If you ask, and any speech in general, even contemporary writing, I've been paneling all day for the Old Vic, and you know, even in contemporary writing, if a writer has put in a question but no character answers, there's still a reason that person is asking that question out loud. So you've got to let it hit whoever it is that you're asking that question to, right? So let's have a little look then. Salerio says, thou wilt not take his flesh. What's that good for? So again, flesh. Doesn't say like matter or skin. Flesh. Say that word out loud for me now. Flesh. It's visceral. It makes you use your diaphragm to say it. You have to show us your effing gnashers to say the word flesh. It requires a bit more breath to come out of your mouth, and the sh sound, for me, I actually hate that sound. And my mum used to pat me when I was crying, shh, 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 shh. And so it probably has some affiliation with me that it's to do with when I was distressed or sad or whatever. And that sound, shh, I think it's quite hissy, but really abrupt. Still, I personally don't find it a calming sound. So that sound combined with the lesh, it's quite a horrible sound, isn't it? I strongly recommend, if you're doing any speech, just as an exercise, it's going to take you some time. Just go through each word and see how it feels to you. Go through it, say it a few times. To bait a fish with all, for example, is another one. To. How does to feel? Bait. And trust me, I know actors at the RSC that have done this, right? It's long-winded, but it's back work and it's useful. Bait fish withal. Fish is a bit like flesh, isn't it? And fish is considered, you know, fish. They're kind of like, to me, serpent, ugly creatures that live in the water. They're not even, I mean, I love animals, but, you know, they're serpents, aren't they? So I don't think there's any accident that Shakespeare has added that line in there. Withal. Again, it's quite breathy, it's quite short, it's quite withal. To bait fish withal. And that line as a whole is quite short and sharp with lots of sh, t. It's an interesting line. And also, because he's talking about flesh, imagine when you bait for fish, you either get little fish to bait for the big fish, right? I'm not a fisherman, but this is what I've seen on the grapevine, the rod vine. Or you put something on there like a maggot or something that is worth dipping in and is okay to lose. I know I'm really going into depth here with this to bait fish with all thing, but to use human flesh, something that is probably, you know, life is a very important thing. Suicide is a sin in the eyes of God, isn't it? Apparently, I'm not the most religious person, but in those days, life was the pinnacle. That was the most important thing. And yet here we have Shylock saying that if he took a pound of flesh off of this bloke who owes him money, he would use it to bait for fish. He'd use it for fish to eat so that he could catch the fish. It's really a sinister image. It's really unpleasant. And I think Shakespeare depicts Shylock as an unpleasant character by using things like this. However, the conflict is he is just a man, and he is getting it from all sides of his society around him. So it's actually it's a real tragic play, I think, in how as humans we treat each other. And yeah, let's carry on. I wouldn't necessarily start the monologue, if you're going to do it as a monologue, from To Bait Fish Withal. I'd probably start with something else. I'd probably go up and cut the text slightly, or get some from another scene, actually. But hey, that's just me being a bit of a monologue hunter. So that's it. To bait fish withal. It will feed. If it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. So maybe Shylock is kind of not joking there, but being a bit sinister. He could have just left it there and said, to bait fish withal. That's what I'm going to do with it. Great. But he doesn't. He comes on and he says more things. He spells it out for the friends, for Solario. And what's the other guy's name? Solanio. I always feel like they sound like ice creams. I don't know if you've ever had those before, but there's a Solero ice cream in the UK, and I always think of these chaps now whenever or ice creams when I think of these chaps. Anyway, if it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. So translation of that: if it will feed nothing else, if it won't feed the fish, it will feed my revenge. And he probably wouldn't use it to bait fish. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he would if we want to go that evil with him. But he's just saying, essentially, it's going to feed my revenge if nothing else. And that's what he's doing this for. He hath disgraced me. And then he goes on. So there's a full stop there. And then he goes on. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000. So look at the H's here. Immediately I'm picking up on this. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000. It's not HHH in like an alliteration format. We've got he hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000. Ha da da da, ha da da, ha da da da. Really pick up on this. It is no accident. It's a way to help you learn it, 100%. Shakespeare had to make these easy to learn because people were literally just given pages of their lines and had to learn them very quickly. But that also, again, it forces your diaphragm to force out more air. Ha, 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 ha. Make that sound for me. Like, have a little play around with it. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000. So I don't think he means like £500,000, but he's saying here 500,000 times, and that's a lot of times. And again, remember in these days, £500,000 was probably unheard of, and definitely unseen by the majority of the folk in London. He's saying he's disgraced me and hindered me 500,000. And hindered, I would say that's what that is. 500,000. He's held me up and he has disgraced me. And remember, it's not, I mean, it still is for some societies in today's day and age, but the idea of being disgraced was a really big deal back in these days. Remember, reputation was the most important thing that you could uphold. It meant you got more money. It meant that you had a high standing in society. And bottom line is, it meant you had a better chance of survival, I would say. Excuse me, let me just quickly grab a sip of water. Lovely. So he's immediately pointing the finger here and saying, this is what he's done to me. Then we've got a semicolon after 500,000. So he doesn't even stop there. There's a brief pause and then he carries on. He thinks of what else has been done to him, why he wants this revenge. I'll go from the top of that line. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000. Laughed at my losses. It reminds me of, oh my gosh, my brain is not functioning. I've been up since 4:30 and it's taken a toll on me after a lazy Christmas. not Keats, Kipling, Rudyard Kipling. Yeah, Kipling. If you can, the poem If, I talk about it a lot. It was my dad's favorite poem and it is very close to my heart. Need to learn it actually. It's been a while since I've said it out loud from memory. Talking about, if you can survive pitch and toss, talking about loss, and not talk one instant of your innings or something. I'm absolutely butchering it. But it reminds me of that again. He laughed at my losses. And that If poem by Rudyard Kipling is the pinnacle of humility, isn't it? How to be a man, how to be a good man. And yet here we've got Shylock talking about revenge and describing a bad man, someone who does laugh at your losses, who does disgrace you, who does hinder you. So carrying on, laughed at my losses, la, 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 la. Lovely use of L's. Mocked at my gains. So he's taken the mickey when I have succeeded at my gains. Maybe financial gains, have a little play. Maybe your muscle gains, I don't know, have a little play on it. Scorned my nation. So then he goes a little bit bigger here. He's talking about his nation, his religion, his people. And again, nation is such a lovely word, don't you think? Nation, it feels wealthy, it feels strong, the nation of people, it feels like a collective. So Shylock's really pinpointing little moments where he has felt this. He's been scorned at when he's, laughed at when he's lost, mocked when he's succeeded, had his nation scorned and spat upon and all these sorts of things. Thwarted my bargains. Again, lovely uses of diaphragmatic language here. Thwarted. There's a resistance there that helps him spit these words out and makes him use his gut more. And I think another thing to point out on when Shakespeare gives you words that engage your diaphragm and your core a lot more, it's a gift, it's a clue that he wants you to feel more visceral with it, have more gumption there. I think personally, I think that's something that you should really pay attention to. And then what else have we got? Thwarted my bargains. So again, thwarted my bargains. So maybe he's made a deal, he's thwarted them, he's interfered with those. Cooled my friends, heated mine enemies. And that's a lovely contrast as well there. If your friends are meant to be nice and warm with you, aren't they? But if your friends have been cooled, they're probably being colder with you. So, cooled my friends. Even the closest people around him are turning their back on him. I've done that one. Heated mine enemies. And again, heated your enemies. Again, the people around you that are meant to be your friends are meant to be the warm ones. But instead, he's provoked passion in his enemies, found a new fire within them to start hating on him even more. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, you tell me, do you think it's heartbreaking? I really empathize with Shylock here, or sympathize with Shylock here. I think this is, I don't think he's right to ask for a pound of flesh, but he is absolutely being abused by all of the people around him. And maybe that's what has driven him to become this kind of dark, the antagonist of this play. So much to explore in this. And again, we're kind of rushing through it, but think about all of these things if you're looking at him. Carrying on, he says, question time. This is the first question we've got from this speech, okay? So this is the first time that Shylock is about to ask Salerio a question. And what's his reason? I don't know if you saw in my first reading, but I held that a bit. I was waiting for him to give me an answer. Don't get one, because maybe Salerio can't find the words. And this scene and this speech will work 100 times better if the actor playing Salerio, when he's asked that question, hasn't got anything to say. He can't say, well, you killed his cat. Or, well, you actually stabbed him that time, don't you remember? Or, well, you burnt his house down. There is none of that. There's no answer. And so Shylock answers for him. He steps in and adds, I am a Jew. 1, 2, 3, 4 syllables. A short, precise, simple thing. And again, Shylock could have walked off at that point. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Psh, stupid reason, ridiculous, but he doesn't. He goes on and on and on and on. So he then goes on to say, hath not a Jew eyes? A question, let it land. Let the audience, he's probably not, well, and this is the other thing. Is he addressing this directly to Salerio and the crew that's around him? Does he open it up to the audience? I think he should at points. Hath not a Jew eyes? I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Hath not a Jew hands? And then there's a comma, and he lists even more. We go into a listicle format here. Organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food. He's highlighting all of the similarities between us and all the things that tie us together as a human race. Hurt with the same weapons, and then he goes into slightly longer things, and there's a lovely rhythm to these lines. Da 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 da. It's so brilliantly written, even though it is not in that strict poetic. Jeez Louise, iambic pentameter format. Why am I getting all these crazy people trying to spam me on my live? If you see any of these, just report them for me, because I don't. It's really unsettling. I don't like it. I want this to be a safe, happy place. Sorry, I do want to do it now so I don't have to deal with that later on. Lovely. Well, not lovely, is it? Poor Shylock here. So let's just go from that. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands? Organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is. And that's where the question ends. So if you look at it, and what's his reason? 5 syllables, short question. I am a Jew, short answer. Hath not a Jew eyes? He immediately kind of goes to one thing that is obvious. Everybody has eyes, unless of course you're unfortunately born without them. But as a given, as a general, most of us have the simple features: 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, a head, 2 eyes, the ability to communicate, ears. He's going through all of these things that maybe some of us take for granted and going into more depth. He takes that idea and runs with it even further. Hath not a Jew eyes? Salerio and Solanio. I always want to say Solanio, which is actually right, but I panic thinking it's the ice cream. It's obvious. He stood before them with eyes. His daughter Jessica is a Jew. She has eyes. Again, there's no actual answer from the characters in the scene, but there has to be a moment where they kind of go, oh, I'm not answering that question because it's quite obvious. Maybe? All things to think about. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands? And you saw then when I was thinking, I pointed to my eyes, and then my next thought was my hands. So again, don't contrive that too much if you are an actor looking into exploring that sort of stuff, but play around with it. I think using your body physically to learn the lines and get them into your system is a really great way to do it. And it really does help you learn the lines a little bit and loosen you up with the speech. So then he goes on. So I don't really think I need to explain that too much. Hands, organs. So the external, a grabby thing, organs, something internal. Dimensions. He's in 3D, right? Also, I kind of take that as like dimensions, like different parts of his personality, as in humors. He has we have different emotions, different humors, just like every man does. Senses. I sniffed then immediately. So what pops into your brain when you say some of these words? Is it touch, sense, taste, senses, hearing? Have a play around with it. Affections, and let's actually look up affections. This reminds me of Lady Percy's speech in Henry IV, Part 2. Everyone wanted to seem like him. So that in military rules, humours of blood, affections, that's definitely not, again, I'm butchering it, but affections, military rules, humours of blood. He was the Mark and glass copy and book that fashioned others. Affections of delight is another a really lovely, it's just so lovely. So here we go, a gentle feeling of fondness or liking. So that's an affection. So I think it's this idea of having feelings and the same nature, affections. We have likes, we have fondnesses, we feel sentiment like a Christian does, but he hasn't got to that bit yet. So again, he's listing all these little micro things that make us human beings. Senses, affections, passions, and again, that leads on nicely, actually. If you've got a fondness for someone, you might also have a passion for them. And then he goes on to the longer-winded points. Fed with the same food. Lovely use of F's again there. F's. It's been a long day. It's been a long day. Hurt with the same weapons. I really like that one, and I'm not sure why, but hurt with the same, I don't know, weapons. It implies man on man battling and war, conflict that we as human beings have created, right? And I don't know why, I think that one really just cuts me, ironically, because it's, what he's talking about weapons. But that one, I don't know, it does make me get a bit goose pimply. Hurt with the same weapons. Again, hurt. Look at that word, it's exhausting. If you're hurt, you're normally hurt. Love it. Subject to the same diseases. And again, so subject, if someone was a subject, they were normally a lower status. So it's an interesting use of language. Subject to the same diseases. Diseases is a great word. I'm just kind of playing with the words now. But it's all important stuff that you can, as the actor, dive into and digest and love to use. Subject to the same diseases. Love that one as well. Healed by the same means. So he's constantly kind of toing and froing a little bit, isn't he? He kind of goes along with some things, like from eyes to hands to organs to dimensions. You see how I've already started remembering it? It's really useful stuff, how it's written. It helps it sink in. I feel like I'm just like totally fangirling about the speech, but hey, I do think it is pretty clear. So I don't think we're having to go too much into definitions and unpacking it that much at this moment. Healed by the same means. And again, same means. Same means. He's using a lovely sound. Healed by the same means. So much to play around with there vocally. And the contrast as well to hurt and healed. Just stuff to think about and really play around with. This is another thing as well. He's touching on the senses of the audience, of every human. Warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer. All of these things are pretty much tangible for the audience to understand and clock. We talked about it a lot in the sonnets, but Shakespeare often gives us contrasting imagery to help us understand the situation. And in this circumstance, rather than saying Juliet is the sun and the moon is your envious maid or whatever, he's saying that it's all the same to everyone. If it's cold outside, we will all be cold. If it's warm outside, we will all be warm. And I find it so heartbreaking. I don't know about you. Tell me. Do let me know. And then they round off that question with, as a Christian is. So it's not as you are, Solario. It's not as Antonio is. It's not as Bassanio is. It's not as Jessica is. It's as a Christian is. He's going wide to encapsulate everyone who is a Christian in this play. As his nation had been scorned at, I don't think he's actually scorning them here. He's just highlighting the fact that they are one and the same. Okay? So again, things to think about with regards to Shylock's characterization. Is he actually an asshole, or is he just someone who has been beaten down by the Christianity around him, and his beliefs have just been heckled and disgraced? All the things he says. Oh, so good. I'm going to come this side now because my little arm is aching. Haven't gone to the gym today yet. This is my workout. And then that lovely famous bit, the famous bit. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you prick any human being, they're going to bleed. If you prick a robot, they won't bleed. Unless it's the kind in like Alien with all that white stuff, which I thought was terrifying, by the way. If you tickle us, do we not laugh? And this is something that Shakespeare does so well. It's this comedy and tragedy collision. He's gone from, if you prick us, if you stab us, if you cut me, will I not bleed? If you tickle me, will I not laugh? How good is that? He's gone from a potentially life-threatening thing. And remember, even the smallest cut in those days probably could have got infected and killed you, right? So this is stuff that is really important to remember. Healthcare wasn't a thing. Plasters didn't really exist. There was no paracetamol. It was all about purging you through blood or vomit or pooping and everything. So really do remember that, because I think it can help up the stakes when we do make comment about flesh and wounds. There was none of this, medicine wasn't really around yet. It was being developed, but it wasn't really around yet. So, bear that in mind. And that lovely contrast. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? And that bit really, again, it chokes me up just thinking about it. You tickle children. It's one of the most innocent things we do as human beings, I think. Having fun with each other. If you crack a joke, will I not laugh? He's listed all these dark things that have gone on, that he's experienced from the characters in this play. And then he brings in that very brief moment of lightheartedness. And in fact, actually, this is something to think about. I've only just thought about. To bait a fish with all, I mentioned he might have been joking a little bit there. Maybe Shylock has the best sense of humour, but no one knows it because they all treat him like a dog. I think they call him a dog loads in the play, don't they? Heartbreaking. Humans can be cruel, and this is a really good play to study human cruelty. Rodney, hello, my dear. He says, beautiful how William Shakespeare has the actor essentially physically embody the full range of Shylock, diaphragm, speech, phonetics. Yes, even as the actor verbalizes the character Shylock. Great explanation of this. Thank you. But it's stuff that we often skip. And this is why Shakespeare is everlasting, because it forces you to, on a visceral level, on a gut level, on an anatomical level, to say the words properly. We get lazy with speech. Depending on where we're from, we all speak differently. In Essex, it's a little bit more like, we just tend to just not even try and move our mouths. There's no really actual, grit in the words that we're saying. So when I go back to Essex, everyone thinks I'm actually quite posh. I'm not posh, I just like to use the language I say. I find it fascinating. It helps us communicate and articulate as human beings. And it's something I think is fading out of this world, unfortunately. So this is also why I want to keep Shakespeare alive. It's really important. It's a rhetorical thing, a rhetoric thing. It's a rhetoric technique to be able to articulate. There's reasons why politicians use certain words and rhymes in their propaganda, right? And I think it's also why posher people and the more elite status in society, politicians, prime minister, all of the top dogs or whatever, have a better accent. It's because there's a slightly, not a better accent, sorry, it's not what I'm saying, but a more articulate accent is because there's a little bit more awareness of what they're saying and maybe how it comes across. And I'm from a working class background, but often I think we shy away from things and don't communicate as clearly. In my neck of the woods anyway, this is a very personal side note on my life. But by not articulating very clearly, we can get away with not communicating. And absolutely the other end of the spectrum is in certain upper classes, if you talk well, you can have a stiffer upper lip and actually you avoid emotion that way. So it's about finding a balance, I suppose, where we're articulate enough to speak when we want to and share our emotions, but also staying true to our upbringing and our accent and our situation, I guess. Anyway, that was a different side note. I feel like I could write an essay on that. That's sparked a thought within me. Anyway, if you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? So this is a bit that really reminds me of Amelia from Othello as well. I should have checked actually which one was written first, but this speech really does, for me, it's like the male version, the anti-Semitic version of what Amelia was saying. That's a feminist speech. She's talking about how if men are going to behave this way, we're going to behave that way too. And in this speech, it's just, like I said, you can slot what you want in. Christians versus Jews. Okay, and I want to talk about something called sandwiching, which is what Shakespeare's done here. This is a phrase I've coined. I don't know if it's a real thing, but he's sandwiched the light humor between two tragic pieces of bread. If you prick us, do we not bleed? Loaf of bread. If you tickle us, do we not laugh? Nice bit of tofu. Next bit of bread. If you poison us, do we not die? Had to check then. By doing that, he's making us go from down here to up here to down here. And as humans, we go through this up and down mercurial roller coaster emotions all the time. And by making us laugh, it brings our barrier down and it makes the next thing more shocking to say and hear. Poison, prick. There's a reason he's picked these two words. Isn't it just divine? Can't even cope. And then he brings it back round to his argument. And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? So that's the whole point of this. If nothing else, it will feed my revenge. You know, what's this flesh good for? Revenge. He says it 4 times in this speech, I believe. 5 times, I think. That's what is ticking him on now and lighting his fire. Wouldn't it you? If you'd been spat on by people in the street? Abused for the color of your skin, the religion that you follow, the beliefs that you have. If they did something to you, like forced your daughter to elope, they don't force her, she does just elope, but he probably feels like they are to blame, the society he lives in. Would you not want revenge? Personal question, but a very useful thing to think about as a human being. If someone killed your cat, you might want to go out and kill their cat. I know it's a really horrible thing. And that's what people kind of, especially with conflict and racism that's going on systematically in our society, I think this is a really, really important speech to think about. And like I said, we could slot out Christianism and make that white people and make Judaism black people. We could absolutely do that. And I think that's why I get so goose pimply and fangirly over this speech, is because it is entirely relevant today. And there are still people who believe that other people are less than them because they believe something different. I call BS. Great. So, and if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? That and there. And if you wrong us, he doesn't just go straight in. If you wrong us, Shakespeare doesn't want it to be the same as the sandwich we've just had. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? He wants it slightly different. Moving along, again, all questions. Remember to ask them, feel them. If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. And again, we. Now we've got the you and the we. The worst thing that we could ever have, I think. This divide. He highlights the divide now. You versus us versus them. It makes me so emotional. Jeez Louise, I want to play Shylock one of these days. If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. And again, the language in that is a lot softer, isn't it? It's a bit calmer, I think. And that this also plays into the whole thing that he's the bad character and this sinister creature that floats up throughout the play. Often it's more chilling when someone goes at things a bit more simply. Terrible English, but you know what I mean. If someone's coming at you like a witch and they're like, I'm gonna kill you, it's not actually that scary, is it? But Mike Myers, when he's coming at you completely cold and still with a mask, so you can't actually read what he's doing, that is scary. That's scary, isn't it? So this line, I think, is also a little bit more chilling because he's used such visceral, diaphragm-based language all the way throughout. And then all of a sudden he's like, if we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. See how I slurred that as well? That's my Essex accent coming through. We will resemble you in that. I have weak L's, weak R's. That's not a good line for me. I need to practice it. And it's simple. It's not a question. It's a matter-of-fact statement. If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. Duh. Love it. Moving along. And again, I don't need to break that down. If we're like you in all these other things, if you prick us and we bleed, and if we're healed by the same means, we're going to want revenge when we need to get revenge. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. And humility is a lovely, I think I said it earlier actually, but this sense of what makes you humble. It's this kind of, in fact, let's look that up so I don't butcher that like I've butchered loads of things today. Honestly. Oh my gosh, I've got so many tabs open. Right, here we go. So let's just look up. And what does that word actually make you feel before you even look it up? If you say it, humility, humility, humility. Duh, 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 duh. 4 syllables, 1 word. There's no real meaty consonants in there. Humility. It's got a lovely sound, a hum. It's literally got hum in the word, hasn't it? Hum, humility, e. All the vowels, apart from the first one, are e's. Humility, or is an e's. Humility. It's a softer word to say, right? Beautiful. So it says here, yes, a modest or low view of one's own importance, humbleness, modesty. That's the perfect word for it. So, you know, if a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? What is his modesty? What makes him humble again? It's the revenge. That's how I take that. No one else has said anything. Great. And it's another question. So he's had one lovely, soft, matter-of-fact statement, and then he's getting him to think again, getting the audience to think again, getting everyone to think again. And I love as well the idea that the Shylock is just alone in this battle. Who knows? The audience might have been really anti him. Probably would have been. Verbally spitting at him as well, scorning at him. People love to get involved in this stuff. We buy into it as audience members when we watch a film or we see an opera or we go to the theatre. We are bought in. We're sold. So if the characters on stage are spitting at this guy who seems like a bit of a arse, the audience most likely, especially in Shakespeare's day, would have grabbed that and ran with it. Loads of that. I guarantee it would have happened. Gets me going. Imagine as the actor standing as Shylock saying this to people, asking to be accepted. That's how I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to be accepted and just get his revenge. He's got nothing else. Anyway, it's so more complicated than that though, but anyway, I love it. So if a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. That's it, that's the line. Revenge. Full stop. And obviously, because we're not in that rhythmic, the iambic pentameter here, we do run on through. Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why? Revenge. Again, he doesn't just say revenge again. It's not just, well, what should it be? Revenge. What should it be? Revenge. There's more. Why? Revenge. There's more to it. I think Amelia has a little bit like that as well. Why? We have galls, and though we have some grace, yet have we some revenge. Absolutely. Oh, I've got goose pimples at the back of my neck then. absolute similarity between those two characters. The idea that if you teach us this, we will learn from you. We will get our revenge. We will behave the same. And that's it points the finger back to us as the audience and the other characters in the play as to what our behavior has created in this man, this monster of a man in the play. And that, I think, is what's so chilling and brilliant about this play. It makes you think about your own behavior and how you treat other people. Oh, so good. If a Christian wrongs a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Revenge. And again, it is interesting because I'm not sure, I'm not too religious, so forgive me if I butcher this too. But is that a thing? As far as I'm aware, Christianity involves a lot of love thy neighbor and be kind to everyone. Is there a part in the Bible, if you're watching this, please tell me, is there a bit where it says you are allowed to get revenge if someone does something to you? Someone sets fire to all of your crops, you can go and set fire to them. Is that how it works? So again, he's kind of twisting it a little bit here, but he's also making a mockery of the fact that these men call themselves Christian, I believe, because I'm pretty sure there isn't a part in the Bible that says, yo, commit revenge. If someone screws you over, you can do the same back. Pretty sure that's not how it works. So he's making a bit of a mockery here of the Christian religion and them for being Christians. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be? Again, sufferance, it's great. Be by Christian example. What should the Jew suffer by Christian example? Why revenge? He's saying he's also effectively giving them permission to do the same to him if he commits a crime. But he's highlighting that he never has, I think, here. Although we could, decide that maybe he has stolen money. Or has he just done his job? I don't know. Why revenge? And then we move on to the final line, which unfortunately I messed up in our first reading, but hey, that's the way it goes. This is just a rehearsal. The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will be better. I will be better, but I will better the instruction. Love this. And this is like, is it passive aggressiveness maybe? This is like threat school 101. Translation, the evil, the villainy, the horrible stuff that you teach me, I will execute. I will do the same. Then we've got a semicolon, I believe. Yep, semicolon. And it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. So the execution of the villainy, the evil, the behavior you have taught me, I will execute as well. And it will be hard, because that's what he's experienced. He's listed all the ways they have treated him hard and harshly. But I will better the instruction. Mic drop moment. Thinking of that Barack Obama gif where he just drops the mic. He's like, yo, I'm out. It's a threat. I will do better than you. I will better the lessons you have taught me. To instruct someone is to teach someone, isn't it? They'd often say, I think it's quite an old-fashioned term now, but I was under the instruction of whoever for singing or violin or whatever, sewing, all this stuff. But he's saying the instruction, the lessons I have learned, the teachings you have given me, I'm going to better your instruction. And he says the instruction as well, actually, not your instruction. So think about that. The and your doesn't require as much diaphragmatic engagement. The does. The instruction, have a play around with it. What feels good for you? So, there we go. That is Shylock. Absolutely crazy, isn't it? How good that speech is. I'm surprised we haven't actually looked at it sooner. But still, absolutely can't get enough of it. And I think it's a gift of text. If you ever get Shylock, it's just the role of, it's such a good, meaty, fleshy role, and I love it. So, if you haven't seen this production, please go see it or watch it online. You can definitely access some online performances. There's a particular production I saw with Jamie Ballard and Patsy Ferrin, who played Portia. out of this world. RSC production. I think it was when I was graduating around 2015. I did some workshops at the RSC as I was graduating for Bristol Old Vic, and it was off the Richter scale. Go see it. And the dynamic they give you between Antonio Bassanio and Portia and Nerissa, who is amazing, is ridiculous. Please find it. Go watch it. La la. Rodney says the last line propels the play for the audience to be psyched for the future interactions to come. Thought that said furniture for a second. Where is my brain? Psyched for the future interactions to come. Exactly. And Shakespeare does this a lot in his plays, because there was no curtain going. There were musicians, but there wasn't, an orchestra. There wasn't much scene change stuff going on. They had to use the words to rev up your excitement and the end of a speech or a scene to get the crowd going, right? So absolutely, it's kind of making us think, ooh, how will he do this? When he gets that pound of flesh, will he be satisfied? Satisfied. Right, great. Let's read it one more time then. I was going to say some more things about the rhythm and the rhyme, but I will leave that for now and just get on with this because I've got to dart off. Let's go. I'm going to actually... No, okay. Let's just go from... I'm just going to go from to bait fish with all. I should have maybe prepared a bit of an edit where I could have used some lines from the previous scene to pop on top of it to make it a bit more of a scene, and maybe cut the to bait fish with all, but still, for now, let's just go from there. Remember, Salario's just asked, why I am sure if he forfeit, thou will not take his flesh. What's that good for? To bait fish with all. That was a rubbish stress. Sorry, my boyfriend's just started teaching a class in the other room as well. That's totally distracted me. Let me start again. To bait fish with all. If it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, heated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Hath a Jew not eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why? Revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute. And it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. Enter a man. Hello, my Master Antonio wants you. Woo! There we have it. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm going to put a little definition about prose, blank verse and stuff in the box, because I've absolutely, like I said, butchered all of that. I do know what I'm talking about, I promise. And I can't wait for the next one. We should be back to the usual time next week, but audition season is happening. So amongst my own self-tapes and coaching and everything, I'm paneling again, which often involves Wednesdays. So bear with me. I'll always update it, hopefully on a Monday. Sometimes there are last minute changes. Just, yeah, forgiveness for the delay with all of that. Oh, hello, Ernest. Hello. I thought it was starting now. Oh, have I given you the... Ernest, my brain has been, it's been mental for me this week, honestly. Like, forgive me if I've given you the wrong time. I hope I didn't. I think I put it in the newsletter correctly. I don't know. Anyway, really good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining in. Rodney, well done for persevering through all of that. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Try saying this speech out loud. Stand up, walk around, put it on an A4 bit of paper and say it, and tell me that you don't feel something, because you will. Just from the language alone, even if you don't know what you're saying, it will get something going. Got to fly. I've got another meeting now, which I'm totally late for, but lots of love. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Mwah! Ciao for now.